Pam Crispin. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of our Time Flies podcast series. I really hope you enjoy it. My guest today on this podcast is Victor Inyang, who's currently Medical Director of East Anglian Air Ambulance, and is going to do a little reminisce about the early days at EAAA because he's been involved for a very long time. So welcome, Victor.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you for inviting me along.
No, that's a pleasure. I was trying to work out how long it is since you've been involved with EAAA. It's longer than me, I think.
I'm not sure. I think it goes back to about 2004. When we had the volunteer service. I was at the James Paget then, and I would volunteer X number of days a month. That was when I first started. Yeah.
Probably mostly weekends from what I can remember.
Yes, there was a mix between doing EAAA and Netterton because the whole pre-hospital thing was a nice break from hospital work.
Yes,
it was very much like my sanity break.
Yeah. And how did you know about EAAA? I think you'd been at London's Air Ambulance before that. How did that happen?
Yes, well, that's to go back even further to when Noah was a boy. That was back in '95 when I was a registrar. So I was a registrar at the Royal London for just shy of 6 months. And that's when I worked with Alistair, with Ronan Fenton, because Ronan was my senior registrar.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Who went on to become medical director with EHAT.
Yeah.
And then Alistair was my boss, and Gareth Davis was a senior registrar then. Yeah, and so that was when the pre-hospital thing started.
Yes. So you were one of the kind of early doctors even for London, really.
Yes, indeed. I mean, we got into London when it was still quite a hostile environment where HEMS was still trying to establish itself within the network. And we were seen as these flyboys who nobody wanted at the scene. But so there's a lot of diplomatic work by Alistair and co to actually try and get everybody working together.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to look back and remember how much resistance there was. And I suppose ambulance services were really emerging and becoming professional in their own right as well. So I think people didn't really see a need for doctors kind of hanging around the streets as well, really. I think there was a sort of prevailing view that we weren't really required.
Yeah, I mean, that you're spot on. And, back then we had to phone every hospital we flew over, we bypassed. We had to speak to the duty consultant when we got back to base to explain why we had not gone to them.
Wow.
That's what it was like then, yeah.
So hopefully things are a little bit different now. What are your earliest memories of flying in East Anglia?
I think my earliest memories are the Bolco 105.
I imagine how you got in that Bolco 105. Right, because you could only just get in.
That was very cramped. That was very, 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 very tight. And I think it was the personalities I met. So you had the likes of John Stone and Gary Stewart, who knew so much about aviation. Yeah. And unbeknown to me, John Stone is also a helicopter pilot. And so he presents himself as a paramedic. And then he starts to talk about aviation to a level that I thought, this is not normal for a paramedic to know this much about aviation.
No.
And it was very much, everybody was really right up there as regards skills, attitude, and aptitude. It was, so those were the early days. We had obviously one pilot, paramedic, doctor, and it was basically we flew from Honington, if you remember.
Yes, I do remember. Oh my goodness. I'm still really worried there's a pint of milk that we left in the fridge at Honington. I was festering away. Yeah.
So it was Huntington based in the 105, which was really, when you think of the tech we have now, that's going back a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And so were you ever a HEMS crew? Did you do your HEMS crew course and sit in the front or?
Yes, I did the HEMS crew course with the maps, with the 1 in 50 and the one, and trying to navigate to a job with maps all over the cockpit.
Yes.
Getting everywhere, which was quite hard going, actually. I think my memories of that was I was training with Luke Morgan, and he gave me the waypoints to look for.
Yeah.
And I was following a track on the map, and I went, in a minute, you will come over a church. And then Luke goes, we went past that 2 minutes ago.
Mind you, that's not a problem in East Anglia. You're going to fly over with the church in about 50 yards anyway. So.
Indeed.
Excellent. I never did that, I'm glad to say, which is probably quite a good thing all around, really. But do you have any memories about any of the early patients you went to? What sort of cases were you going to back then?
It was a mixture of cases. We went to quite a few cases along the north coast to the beach jobs. There was a lot of fractures with the land crews being unable to get to the patients. So there are quite a few fractures. There was also, I think, for me, the one that sticks to my mind is there was this thing about this car surfing. So there was this fashion where kids used to hang onto the bonnets of cars, and their
Wow.
mates will drive wildly, and they'll see how long they can hang on to the bonnet.
Right.
So we had a few head injuries from that.
Yeah, I don't remember that. Blimey.
Yeah, no, we had a few head injuries from that. That was an interesting summer.
Yes, I bet.
Yeah, so those are the kind of jobs we went to back in those days.
Yeah, excellent. And you talked about some of the personalities you worked with. I guess some of the older paramedics, some of them are still around actually. So like you say, Gary Stewart's still around, but I think quite a few of them have disappeared off to Canada. I think Martin Bunn was another pilot. Actually, he did his pilot's license, didn't he? So
Indeed, yeah.
These guys were really, really special. Which colleagues did you have back there that you really admired? Who were your great role models, if you like?
Just thinking back then, because we all worked in a very ad hoc way. Because Jeremy came along after a while, so we had Jeremy working with us. We had, like I said, Gary, the ultimate professional, Mr. Organized. He was very good at organizing people. And I think the back office was very interesting because you had Christine and you had Martin's partner, Michelle.
Yeah.
So you had a back office of about 2 or 3 people that ran certainly the operational side of things, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, definitely. And paperwork, was there any paperwork done at any point?
Yes, we did have paperwork. I'm just trying to remember what form it took. So we had paperwork. We had the old mobile phones, the old bricks.
Yes.
The old Nokias, and the charge lasted like about a week.
Yeah. Oh, yes, they did. You're right. Yes.
And the jobs came as text messages onto the phone. So we got the text messages of every single job, and we would actually almost self-launch depending on how bad the text message looked.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that was from Hollington, wasn't it? And then I suppose we moved into the Norwich base.
That's right. So we moved into Norwich with Sterling, I believe it was with Sterling, and then we upgraded to the 117, which was like going business class, having flown economy.
You could see the whole patient, couldn't you?
You could stretch your leg out sometimes. So we had a 117 that was at Norwich, and I can remember that's when I met Luke Morgan. That's when we did the training.
Oh, okay, yeah.
With the Hems crew training. And did you know we actually took the helicopter down? So you would get to open the door and look at the ground, and you'd call out the height.
Right.
So you start from about 200 feet, and you'd go down to 100 feet, and you literally will talk the captain down or the pilot down to the ground.
Wow.
Not quite sure how reliable he was, but
well, you're still here to tell a tale, which is
absolutely, yeah.
So Victor, you've obviously seen lots of changes over the last few years. So, and you're now medical director. So, what would you say you're most proud of? What are the things the biggest changes you've seen, and sort of the way the charity's developed? What's impressed you the most?
I think the thing that impressed me the most is how professional the whole setup has become. How evidence-based driven it is, and how critical we are of the things we do, and making sure that what we do actually benefits patients. I think there is this drive for excellence, which I think is ongoing, because you never quite get there. It's a bit like, the end of the rainbow, and you keep pushing and pushing. Each time you think you're almost there, there's another challenge. But I think the attitude of the team, and this is the whole team, not just the clinical team, right across. You've got operations, volunteers, fundraising. There's this can-do attitude, which when you think about how it started, so certainly in my experience, we went from this little back office of 2-3 people to having this well-oiled machinery that is so highly efficient with most things like fundraising, operations. You've got the pilots, you've got everybody coming together to deliver our objectives.
I know it's
impressive.
It is really impressive, and in a relatively short space of time as well.
That's right. So that impresses me because, for many years I used the London model as my, that was the promised land of
Yeah,
HEMS. And I feel confident that we can give them a good run for their money, if not sometimes surpass them in what we do,
excellent.
which is a fantastic feeling to have.
Yeah, I agree actually, and I think it's one of the things that struck me over the summer when I was doing some work with intensive care units and hospitals again, is that actually lots of people out there still have in their heads what we were 10 years ago, that we were just volunteers who just ad hoc, and to think we're such a well-trained, highly professional super specialty now. It's just been an amazing journey over the last sort of 10 years, hasn't it? 10,
It has.
20 years really. So it's been extraordinary, and you've been a big part of that.
No,
So
thank you.
so if I was to say to you, what would you like to achieve over the next kind of 5 years, Victor? What would be the kind of important things what are the next steps for the charity really?
There's two in my mind. There's two big areas. The first area really is, how do we, now this is going to sound really strange and odd, but how do we do ourselves out of a job? I.e., how do we make our community safer such that we can prevent a lot of the accidents we go to?
Okay.
And how do we prepare folks out there to better look after people who've collapsed after a cardiac arrest? So how do we improve basic life support training? How do we improve the use of defibrillators? And then how do we tie that to accident prevention such that, we're helping reduce the impact burden of accidents?
Yeah.
If we can get involved in that, I know we're doing a lot of work with Mark Milsom and co. Are doing a lot of work with training in the community. If we can ramp that up to another level, fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other big area is actually pushing the envelope of research and how we use modern technology to improve the care we deliver. So more and more we're pushing research. So we do things like blood gases, which would normally be done in hospital. We're now pushing ultrasound to a new level with actually having peer review of our scans. So it's very much looking beyond, getting ahead of the curve, looking at what's out there. Does it work for us and our patients? Yes, no.
Yeah.
Where's the evidence? If there's no evidence, do we go and look for the evidence ourselves? Yes, no. So that we have this very organic, highly driven system that's constantly asking questions and pushing boundaries.
Yeah, and I suppose it's quite important for some of our viewers to understand that although medicine by and large is evidence-based, but actually the evidence in pre-hospital care really isn't there, at least applied to our cohort of patients, is it? So actually this is a really new field in a way that is really starting to open up now.
That's right, and it's because every time we do things, this, I'm sure this happens to you as well, Pam. You intervene, so you give a patient X drug or X fluid, and you go, does that really make a difference?
Yes.
Or is it because my old professor told me that it did? So every time you intervene, sometimes you can see a difference in front of you. Other times you can't. You're not quite sure, and that's where the research comes in to help you. But then we know that research itself sometimes doesn't answer the question.
No.
So it's so they talk about the science of medicine and the art of medicine, and I think pre-hospital emergency medicine is this fusion of the science and the art, and trying to balance the two.
Definitely. And I suppose one of the things that I've really enjoyed is how we've attracted increasingly high quality clinicians over the last few years. So we really do have some outstanding doctors and paramedics working for us. I mean, we always had really good people, but now we're positively attracting the best in the country, I think. Is that fair?
I think that's fair, and I'll go beyond that. It's now almost an international pool that we're attracting. So, when we did the shortlisting last year, and we had such a large number of very high quality applicants, and so we had this really good problem of how do we long list, short list, and how do we distinguish candidates at interview, because the quality was so high.
Yeah.
And people coming from Sweden saying that we want to come to work with you because we've heard about you in Sweden.
Wow.
For example. So that is but that's the work that everybody has done, the whole organization, right across, every single department.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Victor. And finally, have you got any message for our supporters and our donors and the people who just follow us on Twitter and all the rest of it out there?
I suppose my main message to folks is thank you for your support. Running a FEMS system is resource heavy, very expensive. The work you put in as regards donation, raising awareness makes a massive difference, both from the point of view of running the organization and actually the feedback we get. So thank you, for example, it works both ways. So we say thank you to our supporters for the donations they make, and also the thank you we get from our patients and supporters makes it worthwhile.
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. Lovely. Victor, thank you so much for talking to me, and good luck in the future.
Thank you very much.